The lie we call faith, Albert Caracas writes, is merely one vanity among many in art, perfected over centuries, to deceive human beings about the true nature of the world. With this single sentence, he detonates one of humanity's most cherished illusions. There is no gentle introduction in Caracas' philosophy, no attempt to soften the blow. He does not persuade. He strips. He does not console. He exposes. His thought begins where most philosophies desperately turn away at the raw, unfiltered cruelty of existence itself. For Caraco, human life is not tragic because it sometimes suffers. It is tragic because it exists at all. To be born is not a gift, not a miracle, not a blessing. It is an imposition, a violent thrust into a world governed not by justice or meaning, but by chaos, decay, and death. Everything else we build, religion, morality, love, hope, is merely decoration placed over this unbearable fact. Human beings, he believed, live like sleepwalkers, trapped inside a dream they call reality. This dream is not innocent. It is necessary. Without illusion, most people would collapse under the weight of clarity. We invent meaning not because it is true, but because without it, we would be unable to continue. Faith, progress, purpose, these are not discoveries. They are psychological survival mechanisms. Albert Caracas was born on July 10, 1919, in Istanbul, into a Sephardic Jewish family, already marked by displacement. His early life unfolded against a background of instability, persecution, and flight. Europe in the early 20th century was a continent trembling toward catastrophe, and Caraco absorbed this instability not merely as historical circumstance, but as existential confirmation. The world was not broken. He concluded it was functioning exactly as it always had. His family moved constantly, drifting through Prague, Berlin, Paris, always one step ahead of the next political convulsion. Stability never arrived, and Caraco learned early that permanence was a lie told by those lucky enough to believe in it. Eventually, fleeing the growing menace of Nazism, his family settled in Montevideo, Uruguay. There, in an act meant to secure safety, they converted to Catholicism. But for Albert, this conversion was not salvation. It was another costume, another mask worn to survive chaos without confronting it. Religion did not transform reality. It merely anesthetized fear. Changing faiths did not change the structure of existence. Death still waited. Suffering still multiplied. Chaos still ruled. Caraco was exceptionally educated, fluent in French, German, English, and Spanish. He read voraciously and wrote relentlessly. Yet he never sought popularity. His books, Mortem, Breviary du Chaos, Ma Confession, were not written for humanity at large. They were written for those rare individuals willing to endure intellectual brutality without flinching. Central to his thinking was the concept of dissolution. Everything dissolves. Civilizations collapse. Moral systems rot. Religions decay. Families fracture. Bodies decompose. History itself is a long procession of ruins pretending to be progress. Any philosophy that denies this, Caraco argued, is lying. Meaning is not discovered in life. It is imposed upon it like a fragile scaffold erected over an abyss. We admire achievements, celebrate love, build institutions, but beneath all of it lies the same truth. Everything ends, and nothing is redeemed by ending later rather than sooner. I admire my hatred of this world, Caraco wrote. A sentence so stark it leaves no room for misinterpretation. This was not bitterness in the casual sense. It was lucidity. Hatred for Caraco was not emotional resentment, but philosophical clarity. To hate the world was to refuse to romanticize it. History confirmed his conclusions. World War II revealed what humanity becomes when its masks fall away. Mass murder, displacement, mechanized cruelty, none of this surprised Caraco. It only reinforced what he already believed. Civilization is a thin veneer stretched over barbarism, and it tears easily. Society, he argued, exists not to alleviate suffering, but to organize it. Laws, customs, moral codes, these do not eliminate chaos. They regulate it, distribute it, and justify it. Order is not the opposite of chaos. It is chaos wearing a uniform. Family, society, and the machine of suum facio RINGF. Religion was one of humanity's grandest deceptions. The family was its most intimate cruelty. Caraco spared no one from his criticism, least of all the institution most sacred to social order. The family, he argued, is the first laboratory of suffering, the place where the individual is molded, conditioned, and broken long before society finishes the job. In Mortem, written after the death of his mother, Caraco lays bare the psychological violence embedded in family relationships. His bond with his mother was intense, suffocating, and deeply conflicted. Love and resentment coexisted in a tension that never resolved. For Caraco, his mother symbolized the ultimate crime, bringing him into existence without his consent. "She gave me life, and I hate life," he wrote, not as a provocation, but as a factual statement. To be born is to be condemned to time, decay, obligation, and death. No amount of parental affection can undo that original imposition. Families present themselves as sources of love and protection, but Caraco saw them as factories of conformity. Children are not nurtured to become free beings. They are shaped to fit a world already corrupted. Expectations are implanted early. Roles are assigned. Dreams are guided, then narrowed. The individual is trained to accept existence rather than question it. From family, the chain extends outward into society. School, work, nation, morality, each institution tightens the web. Caraco believed we live not in freedom, but in managed captivity. We are told who to become, how to behave, what to desire, what to fear. The illusion of choice disguises the absence of escape. We are in hell, Caraco wrote, and the only choice is whether to be among the damned or among the devils. Either we suffer passively, or we participate in the suffering of others. There is no third position. Innocence is an illusion reserved for children and fools. Society presents itself as a solution to human misery, yet it continuously reproduces the conditions that generate it. Politics, economics, morality, these systems promise justice but deliver hierarchy. They promise order but enforce domination. Every attempt to fix the world merely rearranges its cruelty. Religion, once again, stands at the center of this deception. Faith, Caraco argued, does not reveal truth, it hides it. It offers cosmic explanations for suffering, transforming chaos into divine will. If suffering is part of a plan, then resistance becomes sacrilege. Faith pacifies where revolt might otherwise emerge. Faith is but one vanity among others. He wrote, "The art of deceiving man about the nature of the world. Belief does not change reality. It dulls perception. Whether God exists or not is irrelevant. Suffering remains unchanged." One of the most disturbing elements of Caracas' philosophy concerns reproduction. For him, procreation was not an act of love, but of moral irresponsibility. To create life is to guarantee suffering. Every birth renews the cycle of pain, obligation, and death. Humanity multiplies endlessly, only to perish endlessly. Wars, famine, despair, these are not accidents, but structural features of existence. And yet, people continue to reproduce, driven by instinct, tradition, or hope. For Caraco, hope itself was the enemy. If people stopped believing and reproducing, he wrote, humanity's problems would be solved in 1 or 2 generations. This was not advocacy of violence, but of cessation. A quiet extinction, a refusal to perpetuate torment. This idea places Caraco among the most radical anti-natalist thinkers in history. If life is fundamentally harmful, then the most ethical act is not to create it. The logic is horrifying, but internally consistent. Relationships, too, collapse under his scrutiny. Love, friendship, solidarity, these are fragile attempts at connection between fundamentally isolated beings. Individuals, Caraco believed, are monads, closed entities incapable of true communion. Language fails. Understanding fractures. Every relationship generates misunderstanding, dependency, and disappointment. Solitude, then, becomes the only honest state. Not loneliness, but withdrawal. A turning away from illusions of connection. In solitude, one can at least face nothingness without pretending it is something else. Chaos, death, and the final sionisistio. Caraco did not merely write his philosophy, he lived it to its conclusion. His life was austere, isolated, and relentlessly consistent. He refused comfort, refused compromise, refused the small lies that allow most people to endure their days. When his father died in September 1971, Caraco fulfilled a promise he had made long before. Without drama, without farewell, he ended his life within hours. There was no hesitation, no crisis, only execution of a conclusion already reached. His suicide was not an act of despair, but of alignment. Life, as he understood it, offered no redemption. Ending it was not defeat, but coherence. Many dismiss Caraco as pathological, extremist, unlivable. But such dismissals avoid the deeper challenge his thought presents. He does not ask whether his philosophy is comfortable. He asks whether it is true. His writings remain deeply unsettling because they leave no escape route. There is no synthesis, no redemption arc, no comforting resolution. Either the world is chaos, or it is chaos disguised as order. Either God exists and presides over suffering, or God does not exist and suffering continues anyway. If God exists, Caraco wrote, chaos and death are among his attributes. If he does not exist, nothing changes. This sentence alone dismantles centuries of theological consolation. In our modern age saturated with distraction, optimism, productivity, and therapeutic language, Caraco's voice cuts like a blade. We are encouraged to heal, to improve, to grow, to find purpose. Caraco asks a simpler, more dangerous question. What if there is nothing to heal toward? We consume endlessly, scroll endlessly, plan endlessly, yet the underlying structure of existence remains untouched. Suffering is not solved. It is postponed. Awareness is not deepened. It is diluted. Caraco does not demand that we agree with him. He demands that we stop lying to ourselves. His philosophy is not meant to save us. It is meant to confront us, to force us to ask whether the meanings we cling to are truths or anesthetics. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Caraco's thought is not its darkness, but its clarity. He does not exaggerate. He does not fantasize. He simply removes the decorations and looks at what remains. What remains is chaos, time, decay, death. The uncomfortable possibility that all our structures exist not to overcome this reality, but to avoid seeing it. Albert Caracas. Legacy is not hope, but honesty. Not salvation, but exposure. His work stands as a warning to those who believe that clarity always liberates. Sometimes, clarity burns. And the question he leaves us with is not whether we can refute him, but whether we are willing to look at existence without closing our eyes. Because once you see what he saw, you may discover that the hardest thing is not suffering. It is continuing to pretend that suffering is not the rule.